Hey everyone, welcome to Restorative Moves. Today's class is pretty simple in terms of props. Make sure that you have a couple of blocks and a blanket. If you would like some music, feel free to click on the Spotify links in the comments below so that you can go to a nice little playlist to go along with your yoga practice. If you like to practice in silence, that's great too. Remember that Restorative Moves is all about being kind to your body. So some of what we do may be intense, but it should never be painful. If you ever have any kind of sharp pain or something that just doesn't feel right in your body, please don't do it. Please make sure that you check with your appropriate physicians or physical therapists or anyone you're working with before you start doing a movement program. Otherwise, let's get ready to get started. So we're going to start in a comfortable seat. If you have any kind of tense low back or tight hips, you may benefit from sitting on a blanket. So you can grab that blanket and just place it so that it's under your pelvis and your legs and feet are still on the floor. And that'll just give you a little bit more space in your lower back. If you don't need that, then just have a seat on the floor. And then allow your eyes to close. Start to arrive in this moment on your mat. Start to notice the natural rhythms of your body. We have these inherent rhythms that we can sometimes take some control over, but generally they happen without our ever having to worry about them. Our heartbeat. It's automatic. It responds to the challenges of the moment, responds to the mind. See if you can feel your heartbeat. And then the breath. Again, this happens automatically without our ever having to worry about it. Notice the length of your inhale and exhale. Notice any kind of pause that happens in between the two of them. It's normal to have a little bit of a pause in between each phase of your breath. Start to become aware of the way the ribs expand with your breath, where the air moves. Notice if it mostly comes up into your chest, into your belly, to the lower part of the back of the rib cage. Ideally, our breath should expand our entire thorax, from the bottom of the shoulders all the way down to the belly to the pelvis. Bring your hands onto the bottom of the front of your rib cage, right where your ribs start to come into your abdominals. Use the presence of your hands to start to increase your awareness of what's happening at the front of the ribs. Feel how they open and recede with each breath. Bring the hands around to the sides of the rib cage, keeping them nice and low so the hands are just above the waist. And again, use the pressure of the hands to help increase the awareness of the movement of the ribs. As you're breathing, notice the expansion. Notice the contraction. Bring the hands around onto the lower part of the back. So my hands now are just above my pelvis. If I bring my fingers down, I can feel the top of the back of my hips. And then if I come up from there a little bit, I can feel the bottom of my floating ribs. I'm just going to place my hands on the very bottom of my rib cage here. And start to notice at this place if you still expand and contract, or if this part of your back seems to hold very stable. Now, ideally, if we're expanding through our whole body, we have just a little bit of movement here, even with our breath. But often what happens is this part of our back becomes very tense, very tight, because this is a section of our back where we're meant to have a lot of mobility. But if we don't move through that well, we start to grip, we start to brace in this area to create control of that mobility. What we're going to work with today is seeing if we can release through this area a little bit, but also create some stability to help control the mobility rather than using bracing as our strategy to control it. One of the ways we can measure this is with what happens to the breath. So what I'm going to start with is just gently drawing this lower part of my rib cage towards my hands. I'm not really slouching through my whole back. I'm just trying to see if I can focus on creating a little bit of movement right at this one location. And then gently draw this location forward. And it's going to be really subtle. So if you're watching me, you'll see that the movement is really quite small. There's not a whole lot happening there. But using your hands, hopefully you can feel that there is some movement there. It's not big, but we're focused on trying to create movement in this location. Just a couple more times, giving your brain a moment to wrap itself around this. And then stop with your ribs released back towards your hands. So you may feel a little bit like you're slouching. I'm going to encourage you to just let that happen today. But I want you to notice if you bring those ribs back into your hands now when you breathe, can you feel that the ribs move more with the rest of the body? So if you're feeling that those ribs are moving a bit more with your breath, you're noticing that you've increased freedom. You've reduced some of the bracing in this part of the body, and you have increased your mobility here. So in a moment then, we're going to start talking about stability. Stability is different than bracing. Bracing is a strategy when we don't have good control. Stability is the strategy of good control. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take both hands, bring them together in front of you. Knit your hands together as though you're holding your own hands. Take the hands, turn the palms so that they face forward. Once your palms are facing forward, check in and make sure that those ribs didn't pop back up into that braced position. We want to keep them in that very small slouch, released, free position. Now start to press the hands up towards the sky. You'll notice the higher you press the hands, the more that your ribs want to go forward into that braced position. It's a strategy to get around having tightness through the armpit and the side of the rib cage here. So what I want to do is as I press my hands up, I'm very gently engaging my abdominals to keep my ribs in this position, to not allow them to move forward. And again, it's not an aggressive contraction. It's really gentle. The more I draw those abs in, the more I can press my arms up. And as I do this, I start to really focus in on that stretching sensation that's now coming through my armpits down the sides of the ribs. Take one more breath here. And then we're just going to allow the hands to fall in front of the shoulders again, and we'll just do this a couple of times. Reach your arms up, keeping the ribs stable, and lower the arms down. I'm not pressing up so high that it creates any tension in my neck or shoulders We don't have to max anything out to get benefit from this exercise. We're just creating gentle warmth in the abs, little bit of mobility in the shoulders here. Press the arms up. Keep them here. Now we're going to add on to this a little bit. So now I'm going to actively slouch. I'm going to draw my abs in, keeping my arms pressing up. So I'm trying to lead this way back with my ribs, with my abs, with that same location at the bottom of the rib cage. Now I'm going to slowly come up to sitting tall. I'm pressing with my hands, pulling my spine up, but I'm not going to allow myself to go so far forward that I arch at the back. So keeping those abs drawn in and feeling that limit, and then rounding back. We're going to do this a couple times, finding that active slouch, actively pulling into my back, and then rolling up, but working on the control of not allowing the ribs to pop forward. One more time. And rolling up. Now, as I come back into this place, the slouch for the last time, hold it here. Think about your cat stretch. So if I lower my arms down in front of my shoulder, I'm in my cat stretch position. But now I'm really focused on the idea that that cat stretch is coming from the connection of my abdominals to the lower part of my ribs. And then I'm creating that little bit of stretch now at the base of the rib cage, not all at the low back or upper back. Roll your spine up one last time. Hold it here. Now from here, I'm working on not allowing the bottom of my ribs to pop forward. I'm going to start to work on cow pose. So as I press my arms up and I start to lift my heart, my chest towards the sky, I'm still not allowing the bottom of my ribs to pop forward. Here's what it would look like if I did this with an old pattern of gripping and bracing. My ribs would drop forward and my chest goes really high and it looks like I'm arching a lot, but it's all coming from here and my back and there's no stability to balance it out. Versus if I'm starting from my neutral and I start to lift that heart up, pressing the hands up, now my abs are working to stabilize me and that lift is coming more from my upper back. It feels very different. It feels a lot more like it's active. My abs are helping to balance me here. Come to neutral, just bringing those ribs back to their natural place over the pelvis, and then lift the heart to find that cow pose in a seated position. One more time. If your arms are getting a little tired here, we're about done. It's okay to do a little bit of work, even in a restorative class. And then back to center. Release the arms down by your sides. Circle the shoulders a couple of times. Take a breath. So why do we want to do just a little bit of activity in our restorative classes? Because when we're building mobility, we also want to build stability. If we don't have stability to control our mobility, then we reinforce bracing patterns, which lock out joints rather than allow us to move through them well. So come to a comfortable seat again. Shoulders are relaxed now. Now I'm going to sit with my legs in front of me. Couple of options here. You can stay up on your blanket if you still need that space in your back. I'm going to choose to put my right leg in front of my left leg. I'm going to bring my ankles so they line up with my knees. This creates a little bit of stretch through the hips, okay? From here, I'm going to think about sticking my tailbone back a bit, lifting the heart up. Now, if this doesn't feel good on your hips, I would keep your right leg bent and reach your left leg forward. So you're sort of in tree pose with that right leg in front of you and the left leg out straight. And that'll be a bit easier for your hips or knees if that's what's going on for you. So either way, tree pose with the right knee bent or square pose with your right leg in front, okay? Sitting up nice and tall through the spine, we're gonna reach the arms up. Remember that nice and tall doesn't mean popped forward at the ribs, so draw those ribs in just a smidge. And then we're going to rotate to the right. Take a breath here. feeling length through both sides of your spine. And then bring your left hand down to your right knee. Take a breath here. Check in with the bottom of your ribs. So one way to know if you're moving through a neutral spine or not is what's happening at the bottom of those ribs. If they feel like they're bracing, like you've lost the ability to breathe there, that tells you that you're trying too hard in your lower back. Can you soften the ribs back and in a little bit and regain that freedom in your breath? And then gently side bend a little bit to the left. So I'm keeping that rotation to the right, and I'm bringing my left shoulder just a little towards my left knee, starting to open up through the right side of the waist and back. And then roll yourself forward. Both hands in front of your right shin. For a moment here, before we start to come down, can you find length through your back? So not worrying about trying to get low yet. Just hands to the floor. And again, you may still be in tree pose, and this works just the same. Hands are on the floor. Tailbone is going to reach back. I'm going to think about gently softening my ribs back. And then I'm going to think about lifting forward with my heart, same as we had when we were trying to find cow in a seated pose. And you'll feel that even without going down further, just finding that position of the spine really focuses the stretch more into the right hip. Finding a neutral spine allows us to feel a more obvious stretch on that right side. And then if you would like a little bit deeper pose, you can walk the hands down towards the floor. Maybe you have the flexibility to come to your elbows. If not, your block can be really handy here if you want a more relaxed position. You can bring your block in front of you, maybe rest your elbows on the block, put the block at whatever height you need, stack your blocks, grab a bolster, whatever you need to make this an achievable place for you to relax. We're going to take a full minute here. As the body starts to open up and you start to have more space, check in and make sure you're maintaining that relatively neutral spine so that you're not folding more in one place than you are in another. Still thinking about slightly lengthening the tailbone back to increase the focus of the fold at the front of the right hip rather than in the back. And then slowly start to roll your spine back up. Move your block out of the way if you had one. Reach both legs out in front for a moment. Set the feet flat on the floor in front of you. And just let the knees roll side to side a little bit, creating a little bit of mobility in the back. And then we'll do our second side. So my left leg is in front this time, so if I'm going to choose square pose, I want my ankles in line with my knees. If this doesn't work for your knees or hips or any other part of your body, then I would try going into your seated tree pose. So my left leg is going to be bent in and my right leg is going to be straight if I'm doing that one, okay? Everything else is the same regardless of which position you've got your legs in. Start out sitting up nice and tall. Take a breath. Make sure that you're settling those ribs, that you're not trying to sit tall from the bottom of the rib cage itself. Reach the arms up towards the sky. Find a gentle rotation to the left. And then bring the right hand down to the left knee. Again, bring your focus into the bottom of the ribs. If you've lost your breath there, that's telling you that you've gone into that rigid bracing pattern. Can you soften the ribs back a little bit until you can find that freedom in the bottom of your rib cage to breathe? Now, you may not be finding this today. This may seem like a really foreign thing. Be kind to yourself that this practice takes time to develop. For the brain to create better awareness of different parts of our body is not an instantaneous thing. So even if you're having trouble with this, keep trying. It will get better with practice. Now, gently start to side bend a little bit to the right. So I'm keeping that rotation to the left. I'm bringing my right shoulder towards my right knee. Starting to feel a little bit of opening through the left side of the waist. Maybe even a little gentle stretch through the right shoulder. If your neck is bothering you, put your head in whichever position you need to for it to not bother you. Typically, looking at the floor is going to be the least bothersome for the neck. And then roll yourself forward. Again, use whatever props you need. So if you need to have a bolster or a block in front of you, whatever you need to be able to do this. And again, if your right leg is still out straight in tree, that's fine, as long as that left leg is the bent one, okay? Sitting up nice and tall. Again, finding that tall from the pelvis, from the chest, not from the bottom of the rib cage. I'm settling this back and in. And then I'm going to start to lean forward, folding at the hips. And when you start to feel that fold create a little bit of a stretch in the back of the left hip, that's where we're going. We're going to stay here for a moment, feeling that sense of lengthening the spine, not rounding yet, finding that fold at the front of the left hip that creates that stretch in the back of the left hip. And then grabbing whatever props you need, maybe a block, maybe the floor is acceptable for you, whatever works. Bring yourself down to a comfortable rest. Allow the lower back to round. 1 minute here. This is a nice place to check in with the neck as well. Notice if the head is hanging down at a sharp angle, and see if you can keep the neck long. So it's not that my head isn't looking down, it definitely is, but I'm also thinking about that length through my spine continuing up my neck. And then slowly walk yourself back upright. Set the block aside. Set the feet in front of you and just roll the legs side to side. Finding a gentle stretch. And coming back to center. We're going to come onto the hands and knees for a moment. If you have some tenderness in your knees, if you don't like kneeling for long periods of time, I would grab yourself that blanket, place that down under your knees. So knees are on the ground, hands are on the floor. And just start out by noticing where the spine hangs. Remember, we've already worked on our cat and cow a little bit today, so we're going to see if we can find those same things in cat-cow pose on hands and knees. I'm going to start with my toes tucked today, stretching out the bottom of the feet a bit. Scoop your belly. Think about the bottom of the ribs. I'm leading at that same place. I'm trying to move the lower part of my rib cage first. I'm going to see if I can lift from that central point at the bottom of my ribs And then just allow the rest of the spine to follow. Feeling how pressing into the hands and knees now opens up the back of the shoulders a bit differently, opens up my spine a bit differently. And then slowly lengthen back out. Find a neutral long position, making sure that we're not dropping the ribs down yet. We're not going into cow yet. Take a breath. See if you can feel the lower parts of the ribs expanding in the back. And then to come into cow, I'm going to lengthen my tail. I'm trying to resist dropping the bottom of my ribs. And I'm going to lengthen my heart. I'm pressing the hands down, thinking about pulling my hands backwards towards my knees. Resisting the ribs dropping to the floor means my upper abdominals are lightly engaged. But that resistance increases the ability to fold at the hips and reach with the heart through the upper back. And then lead with the upper abdominals, lead with the bottom of the ribs to roll up into your cat, following the shoulders and hips. Lengthening to neutral, holding for a moment, working to expand the breath into the back of the rib cage. Stabilizing the front of the ribs, leading to my cow pose with my tail and my heart. Finding support for the base of the ribs so that they're not my only point of movement. Let's do this 2 more times. Belly button lifts, rounding towards the sky. Lengthening to neutral spine. Pausing to try to expand the lower parts of the ribs. And then leading with the pelvis and the heart. Resisting dropping the base of the ribs, lengthening into cow pose. 1 more time, belly button lifts, pressing all the way up into your cat. Lengthening forward into neutral. Taking a moment to expand the breath in the bottom of the ribs. And then folding at the hips, reaching forward with the heart. Finding your cow pose. Come back to neutral. Walk the hands back. We're going to do a little bit more stretching through the shoulders. Let's go ahead and move our blanket off to the side. And sit so that the toes are together, the knees are apart. And drop the hips back. So we're coming towards our child's pose here. Start to walk the hands forward. Allow the heart to drop. And see if you can rest the forehead on the floor. If this is uncomfortable on your neck or shoulders, a good option is to bring the hands under you. So my elbows might kick out wide to the sides to allow space for my shoulders. And then my head can come down and rest on the back of my hands. That puts a little bit less stress on the top of the shoulders if you've got a shoulder issue. You can also always bring those knees tighter in, head down, and reach the hands back towards your feet is another option. So remembering we're being kind to our bodies, we're listening. We don't want to create pain. This is not about trying to hurt ourselves. This is about trying to improve our connection to our body. Now, taking the upper body, we're going to walk the chest over to the left side. So I'm walking on my forearms. My elbows are under my shoulders. And as I'm doing this, I'm really thinking about my whole rib cage trying to shift towards my left thigh. So I'm not just trying to do a big side bend here. I'm trying to take my rib cage over that left thigh. My angle ends up being that if I follow the line of my left leg here, I could take that same line out for my upper body. Once you're here and you feel okay, you should feel like there's a very gentle stretch on the right side of the lower back, nothing too aggressive. Walk the arms forward from here and allow the head to hang on the floor. Now, if just dropping the head straight down isn't super comfortable, I like to take my right hand and place it on the inside of my left elbow and then drop my forehead on the back of my right forearm. We're going to take a whole minute here. Notice any tension that starts to accumulate on the left side of the body. Sometimes we start trying to pull ourselves deeper into these positions, and that's not really what we're after today. So see if you can relax the left side. And notice if as you relax that left side, if your breath becomes more free again. And if you actually start to sink deeper. Sometimes we think we're pulling ourselves more into a position and we're actually bracing and holding because there's a resistance of the body to go into something. So sometimes the way through is to relax. Start to walk the upper body back to center. Take a moment in the middle. Allow the arms to reach forward or go into whichever variation feels good to you. If you have the mobility in your body, this might be a nice moment to take reverse prayer. So the palms would come together overhead like a prayer position. The elbows stay on the floor. Now your head does need to be able to touch the floor for this. So my forehead's going to be down on the ground. And then the hands come onto the back. Can't demonstrate and talk at the same time. So your hands fold so that your fingertips are pointing down your spine. So it would look like this. And if that's not where your body is today, that's fine too. Let's take the second side. So I'm going to start to walk my upper body over to the right, using my forearms to draw me over, bringing the chest towards the right thigh. Thinking about that line of my upper body is extending along the line of my right leg. And then start to walk the arms forward. If you want that support for your arm again, you're going to take your left hand this time and bring your left hand to the inside of your right elbow. And then allow your forehead to rest on the back of that left arm. 1 minute. Noticing your breath through both sides of the body. Noticing any extra tension on the right side that you don't actually need. Slowly walk yourself back to center. One more moment here in the center. Again, options with the arms. You have many options. You can come back into that reverse prayer again if that feels good to you. Whatever your body's calling for. And let's come up onto our hands and knees again. We're going to keep the hands on the floor, tuck the toes, and just for a moment, we're going to come up into our down dog. Press the hands down, press the heels towards the floor. This does not have to be the biggest or nicest down dog you've ever done, but just see if you can gently draw the bottom of the rib cage inward, pressing out through the hands, lengthening through the tailbone up and back, so I'm folding at the front of my hips. Just finding a little bit of a stretch in the back of the legs. And then walk your hands back to your feet. And we'll roll the spine up, coming up to standing. All right, for this next part, we're going to do a little bit of standing work. So I'm going to make sure that I have 2 blocks. And I'm going to take them and place them at the very front of my mat, the very top of my mat. So I'm going to place them out here. We're going to start standing at the top of our mat, facing towards our blocks. Take a breath in, and then nod the chin, roll the spine down, rolling towards the feet and towards the floor. Bring your hands onto the blocks. So my blocks are about 8 inches in front of my toes, and my shoulders are balanced over my blocks. So my arms are more or less vertical here. That gives me some support for the upper body. And then we're just going to take a moment here to explore the feet. So for one, my knees are soft. They're not straight, and I'm really trying to find the fold at the front of my hip. So that means that my knees have to bend a little bit more so that I can fold my hips well. Now I'm going to explore the feet by leaning forward. And feel that as I go forward, my toes start to grip and my heels start to lift. And as I go backwards, my toes start to lift and you can see your ankles and the front of your shins start to contract to hold on to you. So both of those places are places of instability. They're places where my body is trying to grip to hold on to me. So I want to start to find some center where I feel like I'm not gripping either with my toes or my heels. And then I'm going to press my heels towards the floor. And this is more thought than anything else, but I'm thinking about pushing my heels downward. And as I push my heels downward, I'm imagining stretching the back of my legs like taffy, reaching my tailbone up towards the sky. And it's a good hamstring stretch, even without my knees being straight. And then keeping that pressure, start to push the toes, all 10 of them, gently towards the floor. Feel that now nothing really changes in terms of my position, but you can feel the muscles of the legs toning. You can feel them drawing in towards center, building up like a tree trunk to support you. You may feel a little bit of work in the bottom of the foot as well. So this activity is not without a little bit of effort here. Okay, now feel what it feels like to hold your legs strong like tree trunks, rooted into the earth with your heels and your toes. Bend your elbows and notice how much less stress there is trying to fold forward. It's now not as much in my back, it's much more focused on my legs, even though my legs are supporting me. Now lift your chest back up, keep those legs nice and strong and still like tree trunks. Think about what we've been working on with the ribs. Can you gently draw the bottom of the ribs in, feeling that expansion at the bottom back of the ribs, opening it up for the breath? And then keep those ribs drawing in, just like you did during cat stretch. Fold at the front of your pelvis, keeping your ribs drawing in, and feel now that your chest, your sternum, is squeezing towards your legs. So now my abs and my legs are all very involved in this forward fold.
I'm trying to create mobility in the body, but I'm also building in some support, some stability, so that I can use that mobility well. Inhale, lengthen your spine forward again. Feel how much lighter the upper body starts to feel. Now walk the hands back. So the hands are on either side, or the blocks are on either side of my feet. I'm going to step my left foot back, finding a lunge. Okay. So my left heel is lifted up towards the sky. And I'm just going to start by rocking a little bit forward and back. I'm trying not to lift my hips at all as I do this, so that really it's a big stretch through the back of that left calf. And then I'm going to stop where I feel like my left heel is vertical over my left toes. Maybe you need to walk your right foot forward a little bit. You don't have to have the ankle directly under the knee, but somewhere between the midfoot and the heel should be more or less under that right knee. Think about that whole right foot. Can you press the heel and the toes to the floor? Can you feel that rooting and that strength through your whole right leg? Feel the leg toning to give you the support you need. Gently press the hands into the blocks and lift the heart forward without dropping the ribs. That upward dog that we've been working on with the stability at the base of the rib cage. Take one breath here. Now we're going to lift at the hips, pull the hips back, and that will allow you to straighten the front leg a bit. Okay, it's not going to be totally straight probably. And as I do this, I'm going to think about drawing my belly in and finding cat stretch. So I'm pressing into both hands. I'm lifting my belly and pressing my hands down. And I'm still pressing and active through my right leg. And then bend the right knee, coming forward, finding that sense of cow pose, lifting the heart, pressing the hands down. Exhale, straighten the front leg, scoop the belly, cat pose. One more time, bend the right knee, heart comes forward, hands press down. And exhale, press with the right leg, belly button lifts, cat stretch as you straighten the right leg. Come forward into your lunge again. Step your left foot forward a bit so that you've got a shorter stance. Bring the block, the right block, to the outside of the right foot. Now your left block can stay there. I'm going to move mine just so you can see what my other leg is doing. Okay? So my right block is behind my right foot. My left toes are going to spin, so they're pointed straight towards you now. My right leg is going to straighten a bit. It may not go all the way straight, and that's fine. My right hand stays on the block, and then the left arm lifts up. So if you do a lot of yoga, this is triangle pose. I'm thinking about long through my left side and long through my right side. And also coming back to our theme today, what's happening at the bottom of the rib cage. If you feel like you've lost that breath, can you work on expanding into the back again? And if this bothers your neck at all, you can look your head down towards the floor, and that's usually a bit easier on the neck than looking up towards the sky. You can also just keep your left hand on your left hip. And this would be the easiest version of this. Left hand, left hip, eyes towards the floor. Whichever version you're in, just one more moment here. And then roll yourself forward. Both hands to blocks. And step the left foot forward. Walk the blocks in front of you for a moment. Lengthen the spine out. Find that halfway lift by drawing in at the base of the rib cage. And then folding the spine down. And lengthening forward, halfway lift. And then let's roll all the way up to standing for a moment.
Inhale, circle the arms up, find a stretch. Exhale, bring the hands down to heart center. And then nod the chin, roll the spine down again. Bring the hands onto the blocks. Inhale, lengthen the heart forward. Find that balance through your feet. Heels down, toes down. Legs are toned. Stretching the back of the legs up like taffy. Folding at the hips, drawing the ribs in and curling down, feeling that gentle squeeze towards your legs. And then bring the hands back to your blocks, lifting the heart up. Walk the blocks back to the outsides of your feet. And this time we'll step the right foot back. Once you've got your right foot behind you, lower the hips and start to shift forward and back. Lengthen your stance out as much as you need to feel like you're getting a comfortable movement. Feeling that lengthening out through the back of the right calf, getting a gentle stretch. And then finding a comfortable place where you've got your right heel vertical over your right toes. Moving that left foot wherever you need it so you've got more or less the arch or the heel under the knee. Pressing the hands into the blocks. Folding at your hips, supporting the base of the ribs and lifting the heart. Working on cow pose without buckling the rib cage forward. And then press with your left leg. Start to move the hips back. Left leg does not need to straighten all the way. Go where it's comfortable. Draw the ribs in, round the back. Press the hands into the blocks. Bend the left knee. Draw the heart forward. Cow pose. Lift the chest. Exhale, press the left leg straight. Belly draws in. Cat stretch. One more time. Bend the left knee. Heart lifts. Cow pose. Exhale, press the left leg straight. Hips come back. Belly draws back. Bend the left knee. Come back to your lunge. Now step your back leg forward a bit so your stance is a bit shorter. Bring your left block to the outside of your left foot. I'm going to move my right block out of the way just so you have a better view, but your block can totally stay there. So left hand is going to stay on my left block. My right foot is going to spin so my toes are pointed towards you. My left leg is going to start to straighten a little bit. Doesn't have to go all the way straight, but I want to find some force into that left foot. Rotate the chest forward and then bring the right arm up. Remember, options to make this a little bit more gentle if that's what you need are to keep your right hand on your hip or to look your head towards the floor. Whichever version is going to work for your body today. Think about that sense of lengthening through your top side, but also through your bottom side. So I'm not trying to side bend, I'm trying to fold at my left hip. I'm trying to find length through both sides of the spine. And I'm also trying to keep that mobility, that freedom at the base of my ribs. Wherever you are, we've just got a couple more breaths. Roll yourself forward. Both hands to blocks. And then step the right foot forward.
Walk the blocks towards the front of your mat. Fold the hips and release the upper body down. Head hangs heavy towards the feet. Pressing the feet towards the floor, grounding the heels as well as the toes. Inhale, lengthen forward, feeling the abs gently draw in. Heart reaches forward, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Draw the abs in to fold at the hips. And then press into both feet and start to roll the spine all the way up to standing. Inhale, reach the arms to the sky. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale, circle the arms up again. And then fold, roll your spine down towards the floor. Go ahead and just slide those blocks off the top of your mat and let your head hang heavy. Set the hands to the floor and walk the feet back. Find your downward dog. Gently drawing the ribs in, and notice if this down dog feels different than it did about 20 minutes ago. And then bend your knees, bring them to the floor, and bring yourself down to a seated position.
Go ahead and move all of your props out of the way off your mat. We're going to finish up class today laying on our back.
So coming down, finding comfortable position on your back, knees are bent and feet are flat on the floor. Start with your arms by your sides and your palms facing up. Just notice any tension in the neck or shoulders. Notice if you can become very aware of that freedom of movement at the base of the ribs. You can start to sense the floor there. Feel that heaviness through the bottom of the spine. Bring the arms out into a cactus shape or a goalpost shape. So if I was sitting up, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, my arms would be doing this. So we're lying on the back here. Keep the feet all the way together and the knees all the way together. We're just going to take a simple twist today. Allow both legs to fall to the left side. And as they fall to the left, you'll feel a gentle stretch through the right side of the ribs. If it feels comfortable on your neck, you can turn your head to the right. If it doesn't, you can just keep looking straight up at the sky. And it's okay if the knees come apart a little bit here. So as I relax and settle into the position, my legs tend to slide on each other a bit. So my left knee is out a little bit further than my right knee. Keeping that theme of today, check in with the freedom at the base of your ribs. Can you soften them back just a little bit? And bring your legs back upright, both knees towards the sky. Take a breath, make sure you've got everything back to center. Keep the feet together, knees together, start to roll to the right. And as I reach the ground, my knees come apart a bit, but my feet stay stacked one on top of the other. Settling into the second side. Again, your head can look straight up if that's most comfortable, or you can rotate your head to the left if you'd like a deeper stretch. Keeping the ribs heavy and soft to the right side of the body. Bring the legs back to center, lifting them both up. Bring the arms down by the sides. Let the legs go out flat on the floor. If having your legs out straight is bothersome for your lower back, you can slide a bolster under the knees. If you don't have a bolster, you can take that blanket you used at the beginning of class, fold that up a little bit, and place it under the legs. Now, if you're doing this, you really don't want it directly under your knees. So I would put mine just at the bottom of my thighs so it supports the heavy part of my legs and not creates pressure at the back of the knees. So if you'd like that bolster or the blanket there to alleviate some stress in the low back, go for it. Otherwise, just allow the arms to rest by the sides, the spine to be long and heavy on the floor. And we'll just take a couple of moments of silence here. Start to deepen your breath. Move your fingers and toes. Circle your ankles and wrists. Reach the arms and legs away from each other. Take a big yawn through the body. In your own time, we'll come to seated. I like to roll to my side to get there. There's no rush, but see if you can keep your eyes closed through the transition. If you need to rest a moment on your side, that's fine. You have plenty of time here. Eventually working your way towards a comfortable seat. If you need that blanket still for your low back, go ahead and grab that blanket, place it under your pelvis. And allowing yourself to return to the same place you started class. Taking a quiet moment here and observing how things have shifted.
On your next inhale, sweep the arms up to the sky. Exhale, bring your hands down to heart center. Taking a moment to acknowledge the effort that you put into your practice today. To note that you did work that will affect both your practice on and off the mat. Thank you so much for joining me on the journey. Namaste. I hope you feel blissful. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or wonderful sleep if you did this before you went to bed. Thank you so much for taking this class. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions. I'm always open to finding new ways for people to be able to practice in a way that is most healthy for them. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like or a share. And this is a free video on my YouTube channel. So if you would like to support the creation of this free content, please follow the link to check out my Patreon, and you can make a donation that way. Otherwise, if that's not in your ability, then that's entirely fine. And please don't have any feelings about that at all. The class is out there for anyone who needs it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye.